Hey everyone, and welcome to the Unmodern Podcast, the podcast where we have unscripted, unapologetic, and uncomfortable conversations that affects everyday people. If you've ever had an outlook, thought, or an opinion that modern day society told you to be silent on, that you would get in trouble for, or if you've ever heard the words, probably shouldn't say that, then this is the podcast for you. My name is Alfred, a husband, father, and an adventure-seeking kind of guy who over the years has learned to have a positive outlook on life, regardless of what society throws at me. So if you're ready to listen, let's go. Hey, babe.
Hi.
How are you?
Fabulous.
Amazing. You excited to do this?
Yeah, and nervous.
Okay, that's fair.
I just don't know what you're going to ask me.
That's fair. It's going to get a little spicy.
Is what it is.
Yeah. So welcome to the Unmodern Podcast. Obviously, you are the behind the scenes on this podcast. This studio, a lot of the stuff I have, even some of the behind the scenes, our logo, that was all you. So thank you very much, babe.
You're welcome.
So what do you think of the name Unmodern Podcast? What does that mean to you?
I think it suits you. I don't think that you've ever been a modern kind of person, especially in today's society, or definitely you follow a different curve than everyone else, which I like and I think is refreshing. I think that if we all went that modern approach, that we would, or I think society just wouldn't be what it is. You are a very traditional person, and unmodern is perfectly suited to you.
Well, thank you. We've been married for 8 years. This past July,
What's our anniversary?
Shut your mouth. Yes, I failed that before anniversary. I'm sorry. Yeah, so 8 years married. We have a daughter, Sophie. She's 6. And you've been a mom for 6 years. How does that feel? How was that experience, by the way? Was it everything it was propped up to be, things that you thought it was? Obviously, some people that might not know the whole story, if you want to unpack that.
Like what part? Do you want me to go like
what was your vision of being a mom before you became a mom? And then obviously after the fact, I'm sure there's some moms that can relate to that, where you have this idea and then you get thrown in front of a train that blows up your reality.
For me, it was a little bit different than all the moms that I hang out with. I think when you go into motherhood, you have this preconceived notion of what your world will look like, how your daughter will, or your son will grow up. They'll go to college, go to high school, go to college, graduate, have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and then get married, have kids of their own. And I think for us, it ended up being a little bit different. And at the beginning, it was really hard to swallow. And for the listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, our daughter was diagnosed at 2.5 years old with autism, and just recently diagnosed with a genetic condition called Hereditary Spastic Paraplegia. So, I mean, a lot different than what any of our friends have had to go through. And I think looking back now, I kind of resent them for it. I had a really difficult time even being in the room with a friend of mine that had a child that was quote unquote normal, knowing that my daughter couldn't speak, that my daughter couldn't developmentally do the same things that those kids could, was a hard pill to swallow. But I have surrounded myself with some of the most fantastic people, and these people really make me feel normal. They make it so that they don't see Sophie's disability. Instead, they see everything that she can do. And I think that was a huge thing for me.
Do you think that's something plaguing women today, is this race to the top, this competition?
Absolutely.
Because, like, I'm a man, so I observe it from the outside, right? And I don't see everything that you deal with on a regular basis. But it does seem like in society, there is this...
It's like a rat race.
The only way to get to the top is to step on somebody else's back.
100%.
And I don't understand it, because we didn't grow up like that. That's not what we seen. We seen women building communities, and we seen men maintaining communities. But I think we seen men being there for the women, but the women relying on each other. Whereas today's society, everything is individualized, where it has to be maintained within the marriage. Your friends have to like both spouses. You have to be aligned on so many things. And I just think that that's doing a detriment to both men and women, but women in particular, because now there's this massive dichotomy of you either have these hyper professional, super successful women that will look down upon a stay-at-home mom, or vice versa, where a stay-at-home mom will look at a professional and argue that you're outsourcing everything about your family to professionals. You're outsourcing the education of your kids or the care of your kids. You're outsourcing the cleanliness of your house. You're outsourcing nourishing your family through ordering food all the time, because money has now become the new standard of measure. And I feel like that does a huge detriment. And we do a good job in our house of balancing that. But if you just want to unpack that a bit of how you think that's affected your friendship circle and the women you associate with.
I have made it kind of my mission to not judge other moms. I think that we are all going through this crazy thing called life, and no one is doing it right. There's not a single person who you can say to me is a perfect mom. Do I think that other people have it kind of more together than others? Absolutely. But do I see the whole picture? Do they put on this fake facade that only Instagram can see, and then everything else behind the scenes is kind of trash? I think that we as women often play this ridiculous game of who does it better, or my kid can do this, can your kid do that? And I think that that was my biggest pet peeve, and still is to this day, is when someone comes to me and says, my child can speak this many words. How many can your child speak? And it's like, number one, this is not a test. This is not your kid doesn't win if they speak more words than mine. And number two, you just put me down so hard, because in my head, all that I thought was, shit, my kid can't speak. So like, what does that say to me as a parent? Am I failing? And unfortunately, we live in a society today that is the first thing that women think about is, am I failing? Am I actually doing a good job as a mom because my kid can't talk? And I think when that did happen for me, when those words were spoken to me, Sophie was, I think, around like 2 years old, and we didn't have a diagnosis yet. And so in the back of my head, it was, what's going on? I have a background in childhood education with a specialty in special needs kids. So I think from an early age, I kind of seen the signs with Sophie, but never really thought too much into it. So yeah, that was a hard pill to swallow. But going back to women today, I think that everyone has this unrealistic expectation of themselves, and you can't do it all. You can't be a super mom while running a job or full-time job, while keeping the house together, while making sure that it's clean, while taking your kids to all of the activities. It's not possible. You're going to run yourself out. You're going to be exhausted. It's reality. And the people who think that they can do it are those modern day people. Sorry to whoever is listening that is one of those people. It's not me. And I'm very thankful and I'm fortunate that I'm in the position that I'm in, that I don't necessarily have to work. My husband, which is you, we make enough to live the lifestyle that we currently live. And I'm okay with that. I get to watch my daughter grow up. I get to go to every single activity. I don't have to miss anything. And it's something that when I first knew that I was a mom, it was the one thing that I said, I don't ever want to miss something. I want to be there on her first day of school. I want to be there to pick her up every single day when it comes time to pick her up. I want to be at every single dance recital, at every single swim meet. And I'm very lucky that I'm able to do that. I think that women today I don't know if they don't care, but I think that a lot of women put their job above their family. And that's not how I was raised. I was raised in an environment with my grandmothers that they put us first 100% of the time. Do I think that is okay? Probably not. But at the same time, they were the most influential people in my entire life. And I owe who I am to them. And if I had to look back in my life and think of someone who I aspire to be, it would be them.
What would you say to the women that feel like they've been backed into a corner and have to prioritize their job because of cost of inflation, or And I'll unpack this a little bit later, but because of piece of shit men, men that are weak, men that don't have any valuable skills, men that really don't support women. And I think that goes back to my side of the coin from the community we grew up in, is the men allowed the women to flourish. I think it was in the 1940s where there was a magazine that taught women how to treat their man at the door and make sure you're pretty. That's not what I'm talking about. That's that bullshit toxic masculinity that people talk about these days. I'm talking about men that will break their back for the self-sacrifice nature of women doing what they need to do, not doing what they want to do. That's a very, very big distinguishment.
Yes.
Is I'm not going to work all this fucking overtime so you can have a hot girl summer. That's not what I'm going to fucking do.
Mm-hmm.
Is you need to put in equal amounts of effort, but in different areas.
I think that today, though, that's so far-fetched for women. I feel like, multiple times I've heard people say, like, your husband, like, you feed your husband as soon as he walks in. Absolutely. He just worked an entire day to make sure that me and my daughter have the life that we have. The least I could do is make sure that when he comes home, that food is on the table and that the house is clean. That's the least that I can do. He's allowing me to stay home. And I feel really sad for girls that don't get to do that don't have that in their life. And again, like, is it, like you said, is it because of the man that they have? Or is it because they prioritize something that I don't? Or is it because society is just so fucking expensive right now that you can't do anything? It's hard enough to go to a grocery store and get one bag of groceries that's costing you $100. It's insane. I feel sad. I'm sad that we have come to the place in Canada that we can't do this anymore, that it's getting harder and harder to be that stay-at-home mom and live the lifestyle that we all are used to. But what do I say to women? I say that it's okay to start over. It's okay to shift your focus and revamp your life and stop the lifestyle that you have and embrace something different. If you want to be there for your kids, then do it. But that means that you can't have a lavish car. You can't go get your nails done every week. You can't have fake eyelashes. So like there's just certain things that you would have to cut out of your life if you want the lifestyle that is a stay-at-home mom. That doesn't mean that it's not attainable. That doesn't mean that you can't do it, but you have to have a person behind you that is capable of basically like doing what you do. It's a shift work kind of mentality, or an 8-hour day that you're working nonstop, or you have a stay-at-home job that like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard because there are stay-at-home moms, or sorry, there's single moms out there that don't get that. And I 100% get it. I think that that to me is one of the hardest jobs in the world, is to be a single mom and not have the support that I have, or that any other mom that has a spouse has. I don't know how they do it, and I applaud them for it. And stay-at-home mom gig is not easy for them, but I definitely think that you can still take traditional roles or traditional aspects of it and implement it into your life.
Yeah, I love a lot of that. To unpack a few of those, to me, the secret for any individual or couple's happiness is contentment. I think this society expectation of keeping up with the Joneses has been the downfall for a lot of people. Young teenage boys thinking they have to buy a Camaro. You have, single moms thinking they need to post on Instagram scandalous pictures to get attention from guys. And the one thing that we're missing is accountability. Is when I hear men talk about shitty ex-wives, and it's like, well, where'd you meet them? At the club. Oh, what? She had fake tits. Oh, she slept with a couple of my friends, and they said how good she was.
Anything wrong with
no.
it.
But what I'm saying is that they're putting value in the incorrect place.
Yes.
She sleeps with me every single night and does all this stuff and all that. It's like, but everything else in your life that's a reflection of you is in fucking chaos. You talk to people that their houses are ridiculous. You talk to people that they haven't gone to a recital or a game or anything like that. And it just seems so ass backwards to me. And I don't know where the ball fell. I'm trying to look back in my childhood at who our idols were. My parents were not like that. Your parents were not like that in terms of keeping up with the Joneses and all that. There may have been some negative attitudes and stuff, and that's different. But I'm trying to see, it seems like it was within my generation, but it seems like I missed it by like 5-10 years. We were both born in 1989. And it seems like kids that were born like late 90s, mid 90s, they're kind of in that sphere of like right when they were coming into their main development area, that's like Y2K, and like the first iPhone was released.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't pinpoint exactly what it would have been, but I feel like things like values, things like hard work, things like difficult conversations, all that shit is gone. It's fucking gone. You hear of stories of teachers that can't give zeros on tests in case they're going to fucking offend somebody that they didn't do the test. Like, what? If my kid puts in zero effort, you give them a
zero.
you give them a fucking zero. And why is that so hard to say nowadays? It doesn't make sense to me. And going,
because we live in a woke society that
fucking
every single thing that someone does offends you. Everything.
And I think we've lost our spine. We've lost our spine as a society. I don't understand why that's so hard to talk about. And looking back on it, for me, growing up, is things that were important when we grew up was your time. Is that was the ultimate currency. Community service, helping a neighbor, putting in hard work. And I spoke about it yesterday. Right now it's measured, if I put in an hour, is it worth it for me to do it, or should I outsource it? Like that,
everything is based on money.
But that's what I'm getting at is we are undervaluing time and overvaluing money.
100%.
Because I spoke about it on a different podcast, but when I'm cooking, I love cooking. I love the kitchen. I'm in there. It's my space.
I love when you cook.
Yes. And people think, I've heard comments and be like, well, why don't you just order out at Subway, or you have these new like Hello Fresh boxes, and people are doing a cost benefit analysis if it's worth maintaining a skill of cooking food and nourishing your family versus saving money. And it's because we look at anything we do with our time, we look at it as binary. What am I putting in? What am I getting out? Well, let's unpack that a bit. When I'm in the kitchen, I'm learning a skill. I am not on my phone, so I'm not kind of doom scrolling or any crap like that. I'm in a meditative state. I'm in a good state of mind. That's very hard to put a tangible value to. I'm also connecting. Sophie helps us cook. You help me cook. Also, nothing brings people together like food. When you have good food and good meals, that's why people eat out all the time. Something about good food and the social component of it. So it's not binary. It's not, well, yeah, maybe I would save a little bit of money, so maybe I shouldn't do this. No, you have to look at the bigger picture. The way you keep our home and the way you nourish me when I get home with, whatever it is, craft dinner one day and turkey dinner another, whatever it is. That's not just an assessment of how you're maintaining your house. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And it truly is something that is overlooked today. Building a podcast studio in my house. Well, what wouldn't it have been worth it to rent out a studio for $50 an hour? Or, why did you eat up a room in your house? There's so many more layers to it, and we've demonized those layers. We're looking at it from an in and out perspective. We're not looking at the macro, the outlying skills, resources, tools that we're getting. And going back to women, I feel that's unfortunately what's been the downfall. I'm speaking anecdotally because I've been blessed to have a great marriage, and we've obviously been through the shit. But we've learned this and we're aligned. It wasn't, 5 years ago, we were even voting for different political parties. When you go through the shit and you really test your mettle, that's when you find out what your priorities are. And you always revert back to your core values and your foundation. And it's been absolutely fucking obliterated in today's society. Nobody has a strong leg to stand on because nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Like, who do I vote for? What's truth? What's not? What's freedom? What's safe? It's all a confusing mess. And the reliance on government, social programs, the news for our information, people that don't even know who their fucking neighbors are. So if you were ever in a traumatic experience, let's use our own example when Sophie had her very first seizure.
Yeah, if it wouldn't have been for our neighbor, I honestly don't know what I would have done. She definitely stepped up. But like you said, if I didn't know her, I would have never went over there.
But would you ever allow that to even be a reality where you wouldn't know who your neighbor is?
No.
You don't need to align with them. You don't need to be besties. They don't need to come over to your house every day. Mind you, that's how it was, how we grew up. So in an ideal world, that's how I envision it, honestly.
I think again, when you're talking about us and our experiences versus, let's say, our friends' experiences, I think we all came from a different world. We came from a very small town in Nova Scotia, and they came from a very big town in Spruce Grove or Stony Plain or Edmonton or wherever the case may have been. But I think it all matters where you grew up and what you grew up around. I grew up basically in a hamlet. Population when I was there, it was like 500 people, and we all knew everyone. Everybody helped every single person in that community. And I'm very lucky to say that, and thankful to say that that's still the case there. There's definitely a bigger population, but it's still a community that helps everyone out. And I think that that's what we're looking for out here, is we're trying to find that same type of community, but in a city. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard to find the people that have traditional values or that are conservative or that they value marriage. I have friends and I have heard of people, and my friends have friends that I just, wow, I don't even know what to say. They just are so off in left field from anything that I would consider myself, that associating with them makes it hard. And it makes it really hard in this day and age to have friends because of it. And I think it's a touchy subject too, when you have friends that are, and I'm going to use the liberal versus conservative way about this because that's all that I can think of right now. But when you have friends that are more liberal than are conservative, and you make a remark about something and they come back to you and it's like, shit, what did I just do? You have to silence yourself. And it sucks in this day and age because unfortunately I'm the one that's in the wrong when really I'm not, but I'm made to feel that way. I can't have that opinion.
What do you think the best resource out there is for somebody who has your opinions, beliefs, shares your values, but are in a big city and are in a more modern culture? What is something that they can leverage, or a tactic or a mindset? What is kind of that maybe you've discovered or would like to discover or get better at? What can be done to not be silent so much, to have a voice, or to be able to speak your piece and align with people of similar values? What do you think is the best resource?
I think that it's hard to talk about it and not be made to feel less than.
That's why this podcast exists.
But
speak your piece. Speak your piece.
But to be honest, church, faith, it's, while I don't go to church every week, I have surrounded myself with faith-based people, and they have been the biggest influence in my entire life. I look back and I am shocked because that's what I grew up in. That was my grandmother's, both of them, my grandfather's. It was my entire family. We were all very faith-based. I don't think that I align with the faith that I grew up on. That doesn't mean that it's not still within me. So I think that if this is something that you truly want for yourself and you don't want to be silenced, or you want to have people around you that feel the same way or are aligned with you more, then I think looking into something that is faith-based. When it was time to put our daughter into school, I had a really hard time choosing a school. And I mean, we live in where we live, we have districts, and you have to put your child in the district that you live in. I was limited on the options that I had in front of me, but we definitely made the right decision, and the decision that we did make. Sophie, which is our daughter, she is super happy where she is, and she's not in a public school. And I don't think that I would ever have a child that is in a public school.
What do you think it is about people of faith or people of God? What is it about them? What characteristics do they have? What qualities do they possess? What is something that you can stick out? You don't need to name names, but a few people in your mind that we do align with, that we associate with closely. What is it about them? Like, can you kind of pinpoint that?
They hold themselves to a higher power. It's not just society as a whole. They look to someone who is much bigger than you and I or anyone else. They also have this loving, nurturing amazingness about them that just can't be brought down, because anytime that something bad goes on in their life, it's not, oh, woe is me. It's, he has a plan for me and it's going to be okay. We have this saying, you and I, and ever since our daughter was little, it's the 3 words that kind of got us through the thick of it. And made us, I think, who we are today. We got this was huge to us. But it came from faith. It came from me having faith and knowing that we were going to be okay because he's here and he loves me and he has a plan for me. I didn't get there by myself. There was a lot of people involved in that helped me. Our wonderful neighbors who we love very much their daughter took me to their church, and it was eye-opening. It was different. I grew up in Catholic religion and we went to a Christian church, and it was not the same as my Catholic upbringing at all. It was a lot of music, a lot of movement, a lot of just so different. I'm very used to staring straight, repeating after me, sign of the cross, kneel. That's it. So this is much different, much more eye-opening, and yeah, just better. Absolutely.
Is it people don't these amazing humans, they don't look at things as what am I going to get as a result. They look at it as because of their faith, I'm going to put out effort and God will reward me in however he sees fit. You do things for other people without the requirement of acknowledgement, without the requirement of equal return, because perhaps you're helping somebody in a worse situation than you, and they don't have the ability or the means to return the favor one for one.
And it's funny because what I think is hilarious about this entire thing is you would have asked me a year ago where my husband's head would have been. This is not what I would have said. You were basically, to put it bluntly, an atheist. I don't believe in anything. There is no God. I believe in something bigger, but it's not that. And having these people in our lives that we look up to now, it's very different. And it's kind of made you open your eyes to new and different things for yourself. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, I try to stay away from it, but the pandemic, it polarized people and it divided people.
It did.
And when you're put at the bottom,
it divided us.
It did. We had a lot of problems in this house.
Yep.
And it was an eye-opening moment when I realized that the only people that were there for others were the people that were rooted in faith, because everybody else was on an individual war. You were either fighting the government or you were fighting the pandemic. You were either getting the vaccine or you weren't getting the vaccine. You were either voting conservative or you were voting liberal. You're either for Trump or you're for Biden. It was the most ridiculous time, I think, when history writes itself in human history. I truly, truly believe that. And I think what was allowed to happen during that time is a fucking embarrassment, not from the government. I'm talking people calling the peace officers on their neighbors because there was too many cars parked in the driveway at Christmas. Yes, that did happen in our community. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, you need to be absolutely embarrassed at that action, because that is insane. People in hospital waiting rooms yelling at other people because you took your mask off to take a drink of water.
But the thing was, and I think why we were so divided, is I was that person. I was terrified at the beginning, and you didn't give a fuck, to put it bluntly. And I think that was a huge problem in our life and in our marriage, is we were just so polar opposites. And then time went on, and I very quickly realized this is never going away. Then my grandmothers both got sick, and the vaccine mandate came out, and I was not able to fly to Nova Scotia.
To pay the ultimate respects.
Yeah. To tell you that I would have done anything that I could have is putting it lightly. I would have swam the fucking ocean to be beside them. It was a no-brainer for me. Unfortunately, what came with that was that I did have to get the vaccine. It is a decision that I regret since I got it. And
not only that, these women that were pillars in both our lives,
yeah,
obviously yours more than mine, both of them having gone in such a short period of time, it meant that you had to go through that traumatic, worst case life loss experience alone.
Exactly.
And I still apologize to you to this day that you had to go through that. And I know that you understand my reasoning, and I know I understand your frustration. But I
think that's where it all kind of broke for me, is and made me frustrated with you, is that he's making this unbelievably selfish decision for himself, and I have to do this alone. I have to take my daughter 3 times back and forth to Nova Scotia by myself with my service animal. It was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And I did it 3 times and not once.
3 times within like a 3-month span.
2 months. Yeah. It was
August, September, October.
Exactly. I had went home for 2 weeks to kind of see them and to make sure that Sophie had some time with them and
pictures,
memories. And it was a fabulous trip. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, I got the phone call that my first grandmother passed away. And then 2 weeks after that was my second grandmother. And so it's a lot to handle, a huge pill to swallow. But then to not only have all that happen, but to not have your husband there to comfort you, to be with you, it's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And they didn't die of COVID, just so everyone is aware. Although their charts probably say that they did.
But yeah, I wanted to highlight that because I want to highlight the fact that our house hasn't always been aligned. We've had a lot of disagreements with raising our daughter, political parties we vote for, approach to the pandemic. And just to be clear, when the pandemic was announced, we were supposed to have our 5-year wedding anniversary and we had everything booked, everything was good. And then 2 weeks before the world shut down, me and my nephew went to the last NHL hockey game before the season was canceled for the rest of the year. And we bought in, both of us, because vaccines weren't even discussed.
Big time.
We literally locked down for the month of April.
I don't even think we left our house.
We didn't. We had groceries delivered to the door.
Yep. I was terrified of everything.
I wouldn't. For me,
I Lysoled my groceries when they got dropped off on my doorstep.
For me, it wasn't fear. It was compliance. Is I said, you know what?
For you, it wasn't fear, it was compliance. For me, it was genuine fear.
But where my head was at is the messaging at the time was 4 weeks to flatten the curve, to just get this.
No, it was 2 weeks.
Or whatever.
2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Whatever the number. And I said, you know what? It's a shoulder month, the end of winter, but not really summer. We don't have many plans. It's not going to affect me. So in a selfish way, that was my mental approach. We've set up our house, we always have, to be a place of solitude that we don't need to leave. We have enough stuff to engage our daughter. We have enough stuff to engage us. We have a nice little movie theater area. We can stay here for a bit and not feel like we're in a dungeon per se. And then at the end of that, when me and you were done, we were just like, I need oxygen, not recycled by my furnace.
Mm-hmm.
The messaging changed and they kept continuing to move the narrative. And I was very skeptical. I will also say I was very blessed to not have a employment impact. I know people were forced to get the vaccine to keep employment.
Yeah, it's sad.
And we had the discussion that when it was being discussed, I said very clearly, if this comes down the pipe, I'm unemployed because I refuse. Because
Which again is another huge hard strain that kind of hit us as well. As I was like, wow, you're going to be so selfish that you're going to be unemployed. So our family can't have income to survive because you won't get a vaccine. Wow. So to me, it was bullshit, to be honest.
We had this discussion many times. Yeah. It was a bone of contention in the house for sure.
But I look back at it and the only reason that I did it was for my grandmothers, and
which you don't regret.
I don't regret that for a single second. But I think that how awful is it that the government put something in place that I didn't want to have in my body, but I had to have it just to go home and see my grandmothers before they died. Like, that's disgusting. How are they able to mandate what I put in my body? And if you don't do it, here's the consequences to your actions. Fuck you. Why do you get to decide what I do with my life, with my body? Like, it's just, none of it makes sense to me. None of it.
Yeah. Aside from the family issues we were dealing with at the time, there was no consequence that came out to me that persuaded me. And there was no reward that they dangled in front of me that was enough to persuade me.
I'm not going to lie. I truly liked being able to travel.
Yeah.
Even though you couldn't. Sorry.
Hey, it's all good. and that's just my personality, right? Do I like to travel? Of course. I love to travel. I think it's fantastic. But what the sticking point for me when it really became solidified, and I think it was for you too, I think because this was after, the grandmothers and all that stuff, is when they started offering money to people. The Alberta government was like, get a jab and we'll give you dollars. Okay, that's a little fucking weird. Because they truly sent the message out that this was for health. And okay, if that was the case, rather than give money, why wouldn't you pay for people's gym memberships? Why, rather than incentive.
Because you couldn't go to the gym.
But no. But what? Or why don't you pay for people to get discounts on organic food? Why don't you?
Wasn't there a time where you had to get a test just to go do something?
I had to test every 3 days for.
But that was for work.
Correct.
But wasn't there a time where I'm almost positive we had to go to the drugstore so you could go to eat at a restaurant?
Oh yeah, you had to show proof of negative.
Proof of a negative COVID test if you weren't vaccinated.
Yes.
How ridiculous is that?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
What world?
It's great. It's great. Looking back now, it's
at everything that we had to do. I just shake my head and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And now they're coming out with, like, apparently, if you haven't read the fucking news, they're coming out with another one.
Of course they are.
And it's, oh, you better mask up, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. And it's like,
I had an appointment this morning and there was somebody wearing a mask in the office.
Oh, that's everywhere. But what's insane to me is how people are still buying into it. How people are like, nope, this will 100% keep me safe. I know someone who has had 5 vaccines. 5.
That's scary.
5 vaccines. Why? In 3 years. No, actually, less than that. It's been like, what, a year and a half, 2 years now? Something like that.
Don't know, don't care.
But like, so you've had more COVID vaccines than you've had flu shots in that amount of time. Like, can you not wrap your head? Like, I can't wrap my head around that. Like, if COVID is like a flu shot, then why wouldn't you just lump it in with a flu shot? And if you have to get it once, anyway, I can't talk about this because I'll go on a freaking rant all day long.
No worries. Where I was going with all this, and I love that we unpacked that a little bit because I think it's on most people's minds, and people want to say these things. People want to put down a mandated vaccine that didn't make sense and didn't align with them, but they may have been persuaded. I know people in our lives that got the vaccine just because they wanted to travel, and that was their logic, and that's totally fine, and that's complete. However, now we're running into this situation of a weak society that people don't take responsibility. Was it hard for me to not get the vaccine? Of course. That was an easy decision.
You almost cracked.
I almost cracked. I told you I was about 6 months away.
Yeah.
And the sticking point was your second grandmother, is you came back and you were distraught and I was not able to be there. And that broke me. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it is time for me to swallow my pride. And then more and more comes out and I'm happy. But was it easy for me? No.
Yeah.
But when you have people making the decision to get the vaccine, because
it also, and let me clarify, it wasn't easy for me either.
Of course.
Because I had so many people in my life saying, well, why isn't he getting it? That's super selfish of him. He's going to hurt your family. What I have to say to them is this. If I have COVID as a vaccinated person and I give it to my husband who is unvaccinated, and he gives it to my daughter who is, by the way, also unvaccinated, and then they give it to someone else who's vaccinated, it doesn't matter. You're going to get it. You're going to get it, whether you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated. I don't understand. Think of the illogical approach to this. You're vaccinated and I'm not. We both have the ability to get COVID. Yet I'm the problem. I'm actually the one putting myself at risk. 100%. And then they're going to sit there and tell us. So how is it that a vaccinated person is the problem? No, but they're also going to sit there and tell us, oh, it's a hospital bed issue. Oh, so it's an infrastructure problem, not a pandemic. Okay, yeah. That fucking makes sense. So I'm gonna digress from this topic a little bit here, but where I was going with this, with the pandemic, is us having not a solidified house in terms of opinion, approaches, all that stuff, is I'm thankful and grateful because it made us stronger. 100%. And what that took is it took me seeing how selfless you are, that you would, I don't want to say compromise yourself, but you would swallow your pride, take a vaccine that you were told was safe, so you're going to believe it at face value, which is fine, for the people you love the most. Then on the flip, now you're going to have a firm stance because I stood my ground, and you're appreciative of that, I think, to this day. That's where we complement each other. The problem that we're having now is you have people that got the vaccine for superficial reasons, and then they won't take responsibility. They'll blame the government. They'll blame Pfizer. They'll blame Moderna. They'll blame society. They'll blame unvaccinated. You decided to get this. You made the decision. That's right. Regardless of your reasonings, you decided to get it. Not getting it, was that hard? Of course. It was not easy. We lost friends. We were judged. We deleted people off Facebook because of arguments. It was not easy. Was it easy for me to
be told that I can't go to the Atlantic bubble and see my grandmother who was passing away? Of course.
Yeah,
Of
that's another
course.
thing is your grandmother also
That's
passed
right.
away.
That's right. That's not easy.
Yeah, we lost 3 grandmothers that pandemic.
Not because of
Not
COVID,
because-
just so we're all fucking clear.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is you're going to have people that will not take responsibility. And I think that's a reflection, going back to even the title of this podcast, Unmodern, is today in modern society, people will make decisions because the alternative was hard. The alternative was difficult. And then when it doesn't work out, or it goes awry, or they don't get the desired result, they will turn around and deflect because people are soft. They will blame other moms. They will blame their work. They will blame interest rates. They will blame. You have the ability to take control of your life in every way, shape, and form. If you don't like the school system, homeschool. Can't afford it, sell the house and downgrade. Can't afford that, rent a 1-bedroom and put bunk beds in it.
People are so afraid though of going backwards, right?
And that's my problem. And that's where I'm going with this is we demonize it. We look at, like, even us. Do you remember? I think it was 2017. We were realigning our finances. We sold our RV. We sold our truck for a car. So like our social image online looked like everything was kind of being fire sold. And you heard through friends of a friend that people were saying, I hear Courtney and Albert aren't doing very well. What's going on? Yeah. And we were just like, what? No, we're doing fine. We just don't need all this shit. We're actually doing better because we don't have as many payments, and we're actually, like, we kind of just realized it. And that's what I mean is when you were saying, when you talk about people having to have expense or pay for expenses and having to compromise the structure of their home, and they make that choice, that's fine. But then you can't turn around and blame interest rates when you can't afford things, especially if you've made decisions in your life to make more money. Yeah. So that's where I'm going with all of this is contentment and the power of not caring what other people think, is having conversations like this with your partner, raising your kids in a manner that aligns with that. And I'm not saying people have to have the same opinions and views as us. That's not what I'm getting at. But I think we can agree that all of society can use a little bit more self-responsibility and understand that everything is within your control, and everything that goes wrong in your life, the majority of it, not all of it, but the majority of it, you have control. And that's it. The one thing you don't have control of is other people. And that's something that in the last calendar year has helped me immensely. Yeah. Is giving up control. I cannot control other people's opinions. I cannot control other people's actions. I control my own. That's it. Whether I choose to align with you or not, that's my decision. Whether I choose to go to the fire with other men or not, that's my decision. If I choose to align with these other social justice movements that are going on or not, that's my decision. The problem is we've allowed to happen as a society is we've allowed people that align with these small movements, LGBT, Black Lives Matter, all these really radical, hard agenda groups, we've allowed them to have a lot of power. We've allowed them to say how I feel is reality. We've allowed them to say that how people that I have no way, shape, or form experience with, that what they said or did I align with, therefore it's law, therefore it's reality. And it's not the case. And I feel
like they always, like groups like that, they have this stance on life. And it's like, this is my reality. I am a trans woman. I actually don't even know what that means. I am a trans woman. Does that mean you're a guy and then you're a girl?
Pretty sure that's a dude.
A dude. Okay, so I was a guy and now I'm a girl, and you have to be okay with it. Nope, sure don't. Cool for you. Great, awesome. Live your life, bud. Do it. But don't you dare push that shit down my throat. If there's something in the world that I cannot stand, is when someone tells me I have to agree with you. I have to have this take on this. I have to go with society. No, I don't. I don't. And if I don't agree with it and I don't like it, that's okay. We can all have different views and different opinions. It doesn't mean that I think less of you as a person. I love you as a person. I think you're a fabulous person. But your views do not align with my views, and that is okay.
That's where faith comes in, right? Because I value your value as a human.
100%.
I'm not aligning, or I'm not associating your value with your opinions and beliefs. The fact that you're living and breathing means that you have innate value. And that's where The difference aligns with people with abortion, people with LGBT, people with radical political ideals. I love you as a person, regardless of any sort of difference you have. Skin color, beliefs, religion, doesn't matter. But in terms of just valuing your opinion and your presence around me, that's innate. That just happens by virtue.
There's this social media guy. His name is, and I say guy, but really, I don't know. Jeffree Star, fabulous podcast, or not podcast. I think he's on Instagram and TikTok. That's all I know. Anyway, he was being interviewed by this guy, and he had said something that stuck with me. He is transgender, or she is transgender. And if I'm mislabeling, super sorry. He had said that all the other bullshit, the they and them, he's like, there's two genders. There's male and there's female. There's guys and there's women. And he said, it's the they and them in the middle that has gone crazy. And then he said, but I can say that because I identify as that. You can't, because that'll make you transphobic. How ass fucking backwards is that? I'm not allowed to have that opinion because I don't identify as that.
I think that's completely ridiculous. And that goes to almost anything. My opinion and position is not discounted because of my lack of experience. Is it more valuable because they have experience? Sure. But that's to say that, men don't have any reproductive say when a woman is pregnant. Okay, well, that's pretty ridiculous because it takes a man to get a woman pregnant.
Yeah, you didn't just come up with that on your own.
So the fact that they're not involved in that conversation strictly because they cannot get pregnant, which is also a fucking hilarious hypocrisy in the sense of the same people that will tell you that men and women are the same will also be the ones that tell you that you don't have an opinion on abortion, but that's another topic. And then it's the same thing with anything in life. You don't have an opinion on how to raise kids because you're working all day. Well, I'm pretty sure it's my child too. And I'm pretty sure there's a dichotomy in marriage and in life on how to raise children, how to have a functioning society.
Yeah. And I think that where we are in life and kind of where society places everybody is women can do all of the jobs that men can do. Sorry, they can't. And guess what? Men can't do all the jobs that women can do. And people will hate me for what I just said. And that's okay. You hate me, you hate me. I don't really give a shit. I personally think that men are stronger than women. That's it. Women are better at certain things than men. And that's it. And that's okay. When did it become this horrible stigma that everything that I can do, you can do? Everything that you can do, I can do. I can't stand that. I can't. Because then it goes right back to everything that we just talked about. It's modern.
Russell Brand has a really great way of putting this. He was on the Diary of a CEO podcast. Love that podcast, by the way. He's got some really great guests on there. And Russell Brand's a character as it is. And he said that he has to constantly practice anarchist calisthenics. And he explained it in a way that in the last, I don't know, I don't remember how many years he quoted. He basically said the lying and the bullshit that has come from people who call themselves leaders, people who call themselves, high-powered individuals and all this stuff has been so ridiculous that he actually now has to practice not doing the exact opposite of what anybody says. and I truly believe that. If somebody tells me to get vaccinated, get fucked. If someone tells me to put your kid in this school, I'm likely going somewhere else. Anybody in a position of authority that tries to come at me and invalidate my opinion just by proxy, I immediately have this urge and desire to go the opposite direction.
Yep.
Anybody who puts it down my throat and tells me that I need to get rid of my critical thinking skills, get rid of my research, which, what the fuck is research nowadays? It's
all fake news.
That's all it is. And I truly have to practice that. I actually have to fight the urge. And Russell Brand talks about it from positions of authority. I almost think about it, anybody that comes at me with a higher tone of voice or a position of empowerment, even if they're on the same level as me, even if they're a friend, my immediate knee-jerk reaction now is to go the other direction. And this comes from years of being told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, or even worse, what you can't do.
And that's my biggest thing.
And that is,
don't tell me that I can't do something.
Exactly. And that's where the freedom is infringed upon. Listen, in Canada, You cannot deny the Holocaust. It is against the law. I think that's brilliant. I think that is amazing. And I think Holocaust deniers are ridiculous. And the fact that that's law pays respects to the people that suffered through that. It recognizes the atrocities and it burns it into history that we can learn from the past. But what's happening now is it's a bigger issue with what's happened throughout history, where people have always fought against structures. You've always had rebellion against kings. You've always had stronger countries trying to conquer weaker countries. Sometimes they weren't successful. You look at the Vietnam War, big powerhouse US tries to invade Vietnam. I'm paying respects to military service men and women that lost their lives. Where this is going is in 2023 and likely beyond, there is a war against the structure of truth. Is people are rewriting vocabulary because they're considering it a win. People are wanting to alter your opinion and position by law and force because they don't like your reality. They don't have to go the difficult road. All they have to do is scream, call the helpline, and you lose your job, or you lose your kids, or you lose your social reputation, or you get canceled, which is a fun word these days, without putting in effort. That's the problem. We're rewarding delinquency. We're rewarding lack of effort. We're rewarding people that don't want to do work. And I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about anything that is a net positive to themselves or society. You know, a great example I'll use, I seen this on a podcast, and this goes back to women. I seen a podcast called the Whatever Podcast. It's about dating. They have some very interesting people on that podcast. It's a really fun one. The host asked all the girls on there, rate yourself 1 through 10.
Oh, I remember this.
Yes. And all the girls said 10.
Yeah.
First of all, you can't know the value of a woman strictly by looks.
No.
You can't know the value of a man strictly by looks. But there was one girl on there who called Lizzo a 10. And for anybody who doesn't know who Lizzo is, she's a very famous hip hop artist, whatever you want to call her. But halfway through the show, the host complimented her by saying, "I love what you're wearing today. You remind me of Lizzo." And she took it as an offense. And that goes,
but yet she called Lizzo a 10.
And that goes back to this underlying lie to conform that we tell people, this body positivity, this fallacy where people are taking reality and they're lying. And then they're telling you, you either believe my lie or you face consequences. Mm-hmm. And that's on both sides. I don't want to pick on one side because I align with one more than the other, but that's on both sides. Don't force me to have to do that. And that's where I absolutely love where we're at, is we've gone through the shit over the last few years. We've reinforced ourselves. We've reduced our circle, but we've reinforced our circle of influence around us. And I think that is the code. That is the secret to happiness. That is the secret to feeling and living more fulfilled. And I feel so sorry for people out there that are going in the opposite direction, because I do think it's a direction that leads off the end of a cliff. I truly do. That's why suicides are up. That's why depression is up. That's why all these modern day problems, that's why they're all increasing, is people have lost connection with themselves and with the people around them.
Yeah.
One more topic I'd love to discuss on here today, and this was kind of one that was brought up in my mind this morning a little bit, is I wanted to get your thoughts on men. I want you to kind of, I know you're married, happily married. We're doing great.
Am I though?
I mean, you're asking the wrong guy. I mean, my goodness, I definitely would not rate myself through 1 through 10. That's just terrible. But this is an interesting conversation because I feel like women don't have this conversation anymore. I feel like
do you think we don't have it with each other, or do you think that we don't have it, period?
I don't think you have it honestly.
With each other?
Correct.
And what do you want to know?
I want to know, in your mind, what have you heard as a woman? Mm-hmm. Because as much as we talked about women on here and as much as we talked about people taking accountability, that's for both sides of the fence.
I'm still not understanding what you're asking me.
So what I'm asking you is, when you talk to the girls that you hang out with, not all of them are married. Okay. Not all of them have kids. Some of them are divorced. Some of them never been married. Mm-hmm. What do you hear when it comes to what are men's shortfalls? What do you hear that women think is missing from society, that any single divorced men listening to this, what can they do to position themselves, if they want to? If they don't want to, that's fine. But position themselves to find a partner of quality, not some hot summer chick that was a good fling for one night and then it ends in divorce 6 months later. I'm talking about somebody of value and substance.
So I think that first of all, you need to, like, what do you want in a relationship? Do you want someone who is going to travel the world with you so that you can fuck on the daily and then that's it? Or do you want someone that's going to help you raise a family? Because those are two very different people. Will I absolutely travel the world with you? Absolutely. But you ain't going to get the second one from me. I can guarantee you that.
Not with that attitude.
But it's that, I think, fine line of what do you want and what do you need in a relationship or in a woman.
So what are some commonalities you're seeing from women, whether they're married or not? Because we know some marriages that are hanging on by a thread, and we know some divorces that happen that honestly shouldn't have happened. So what do you think is a shortfall that
when I look back at the divorces that I feel like shouldn't have happened, a lot of it was time. You weren't there. But I also look at it on the flip side is, did you communicate with them that that was the case? So I come from a very, I think, different perspective than what most women will. Whereas I value men. I hold them or I put them on this pedestal. Whereas a lot of women don't.
What kind of men do you put on a pedestal? Because not all men get put on pedestals. So what are some things that you value in a man?
Hard work. I think that all men need to have a work ethic. I can't stand when I hear that some guy has sat on a video game for 8 hours a day. For myself, he needs to be hardworking. He needs to want to spend time with us. He has to have a good home work-life balance. I think that's the biggest one, because I can guarantee you one thing. If something happens to you, your job is not going to be the person that calls you to see if you're okay. It's going to be your family, not your job. So prioritize your family over your work 100% of the time. I think we've seen that recently, is that your job is not there for you. They're not the ones that matter the most in life. Yeah, it's how you make your income, but your family will always be there for you. So that's, I think, the biggest one for me, is making sure that that man has that work-life balance. Leave work at the door. Don't take it home with you. That's another one. A healthy sexual appetite. That's also another one. And wanting to explore, being that guy that wants to go places, that wants to see new things, that wants to travel. I am not the type of person. And again, I'm talking about this as if it was for me. I'm not the person who likes to sit still. Never have been, never will be. I left my house when I was 17 years old and never looked back. I want to see the world. And I think that that's a very, for myself, high priority for me.
So I think what you're describing is a pretty low percentage of men right now, which I think is where men's shortcomings come from. I truly do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think part of that is the issue. Is I think we're telling women that you need to have a high income earner who's not obese, loves to travel, can fuck real good.
But I never said
has strong. No, but you paraphrased a little bit there. You said you wanted to go see the world.
Yeah.
So you're a traditional woman, so you love the man to work and make the income, but he also needs to balance work and home. That's in confliction a little bit, because where do you find the happy medium? Where
it's not, because you do it. But I
haven't always done it. And
here's my thing.
Yeah.
Listen, here's my thing. Mm-hmm. Is it's different. So, and again, I'm looking at it from my life, not from anybody else's, because this is all I know. Mm-hmm. But you're a shift worker. The 5 days that you're working are the 5 days that you're working. When you come off on those 5 days, my expectation is that you at some point will be with your family, that you'll prioritize us over something else that you want to do. Does that mean that you can't do something for yourself? No. But that means that the priority is that you have a family. That's it. I never said that every single waking day you needed to be with your family. I said that you prioritize your family. Continue.
Just give an example. Like, I just came off of a 5 shift.
Yes.
So like, we live in Alberta. This is a very shift work for kind of cultured workspace. The oil and gas industry, the transportation industry, the aviation industry. It's very shift work based. We know friends that their husbands are gone 24 days of the month.
Yep.
That's a hard pill to swallow. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to have a quality sexual life.
So here's the question.
Hang on. It's very hard to have that balance. And
but it's not.
But hang on, you have men that go work for 60, 70% of the month away from their home, whether it's 500 miles away or 5,000 miles away, whatever it is.
Yep.
Then when they come home, the expectation is prioritize family when they have yet to have individual time at home. And we know people that literally when the man walks in the door, they're handed a baby and the mom just takes a couple of days off. Do they deserve that day off? 100%. 100%.
But the man just came.
Where I'm getting at with this is I want to get a female perspective using other people that might be in a more difficult situation. Like we've talked about, an example I'll say is you said if I was to ever have to go back and do commuting work, you would never allow it. You would move to that city.
Absolutely.
You would leave your friends.
100%.
You would make the hard decisions.
Absolutely. But that's the problem is that most women nowadays wouldn't. They wouldn't do that. They don't want to do that. They want to live in their comfortable life. They want to live in their comfortable home with all their comfortable things. And that's fine for them. But that's not me. I prioritize my family. I want my family to be together all the time. That means that if my husband has a job in Fort McMurray, my husband has a job in Yellowknife, my husband has a job in Nunavut, I don't care where it is. I am not going to sit here and for 20 days out of a month and wait for my husband to come back. And that's my opinion. That's my choice as a person, as a wife.
So is that something that you would tell maybe a woman who might be struggling?
Absolutely.
That is told. And I don't think we would necessarily need to, if I was living in Yellowknife or something, or if I was working up north in, say, the diamond mines in Iqaluit or wherever it is up there, I don't think we need to move up there.
What I'm saying is if you're gone for 20 days out of a month, I'm moving there because I know that I can't do it by myself.
But do you think there's conversations that should be had that aren't had, where there could be a year or two of self-sacrifice so long as a man is doing what he can to become local? Do you think that there could be that conversation where somebody looks at this not as a 30-year career and having to commute and never see their kids, never see their wives?
So here's a question to you then. Are you okay missing 2 years of your kid's life?
Depends on where I'm at in my life. If you ask 25-year-old me, 100%. It's not even a question.
But if you ask 34-year-old you?
No.
See, that's the thing.
But that's what I'm getting at is if there's people listening that are in that situation, and we know people, we're not going to name names, that their partner is gone 80% of the month. And men get comfortable. Men get attracted to the money when that, we've already discussed on this podcast, is not what's important. But it takes a woman to realign and be content with less.
Yes. However.
So if you had to trade in your nice brand new fancy van for a shit box, but it meant that I stopped commuting, I believe you would do that.
Absolutely.
Is that a secret code that maybe women haven't considered, or men sit there and say, I'm going to take correspondence while I'm up there. I'm going to finish my degree that I dropped out of in my third year to get local, or I'll take a full, but that's what I'm getting at is I wouldn't think of that unless my woman incentivized me to do it.
Yeah. So
because if a woman,
what I would say to those women is, are you happy? Is this what you want? Because there was actually something that I read online, and I actually need to find it because it suited this conversation like you wouldn't believe.
Where I'm going with this is I think people self-sabotage all the time. I think people will get into that type of position. And that's a pretty big example. I'm obviously, that applies to other small things in life. Like if there's no sex life, if there's no time with family, if there's too many video games, if there's not enough, or if a person has gained 100 pounds in a marriage, because once they get married, they're like, well, I'm comfortable. She has to love me regardless, or vice versa. Self-work never ends. That goes till the day you die.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's demonized. That's called toxic masculinity. That's called, body positivity or body shaming or whatever other fucking modern day buzz phrase you want to use. That's the issue, is I don't think people can have these conversations anymore. And I think that's the secret. So getting your perspective on us using, friends or ex-friends or distance acquaintances examples where maybe they haven't had these discussions before, but we have. We're not even in these fucking situations, and we've actually had these discussions. We've talked about what if scenarios all the fucking time.
All the time.
We talk about it.
But I think that that's healthy because there could come a day where that is the case for us. And what would I do? Well, I'd pack up and fuck off. because I don't belong here.
Like, I think you've thought about what you would have to sacrifice
100%.
to meet your higher priority,
Absolutely.
what you value.
So there's
yeah,
this.
sorry.
So,
Yeah, I want to hear this.
So it says, it was a friend of mine actually from down home that her fiance is working in Fort McMurray. So from down home, so Nova Scotia to Fort McMurray. And I mean, that's how we met. I was in Nova Scotia. You were in Alberta. A lot of my family friends have all done the same thing. But it says, so you want that job away from home life. The big trucks, the toys, the money, it comes with a price. Try packing all your things in front of your wives or girlfriends, knowing that they are hurting to see you leave. Try starting the clock, hoping that last day home goes slower than usual. Try getting in your vehicle with your kids and partner staring out the windows and doors. Try driving down the road with tears in your eyes. Try hoping you forgot something so you can turn around for one more hug, one more kiss, or one more I love you. To think you haven't even made it to work for your first day. There's always at least 20 days at a time, depending on your schedule, if not more. Your head and heart will be heavy. It will never get easier. Think about the next time you think it will be nice. It's hard, and you'll sacrifice far more than you think. And most of the time, it's like this. Be safe. When I think of that, there's not an ounce of me that would ever go through that. And it hurts my heart that there are women out there that do have to go through it. Friends of ours have to go through it. And I question it on the daily about why. And I think for them is they just don't want to leave their reality here. And that's fine for them if that's what they want. But I think that you need to ask yourself wholeheartedly, are you happy? Are you okay watching him leave every single time that he leaves? Are you okay that he misses months with your kids? That he doesn't get to watch them grow up? Or if he does, that it's over FaceTime? And if that's okay for you, then that's okay for you. That's your life. You live it. But that's not okay for me. And I would never be able to do it. I'd leave my life here, my friends here, my family here in a heartbeat if it meant that every night my husband could come home to us.
It's so interesting because from a man's perspective, and I can speak to experience on this, is if you told me that, or if my daughter ever came up to me and said, Daddy, I really want this, or you were driving a shipbox car for 10 years and you're like, I'd really like to not have to fucking worry about this thing breaking down, or if you were tired of living in a rental and wanted to buy a house, if you asked me and you said there's this job, or if I looked and I said there's a job opportunity up north, I'm going to take it, and it's doubles my salary, I will tell you there's not a single second in my mind that would hesitate to make that sacrifice. And I think that's what we're missing. Is I think there's a lot, and it goes back to that original statement that I said, is people look at an energy in and energy out. Is this worth it for me when it only affects somebody else? What do I get out of this? And the one thing we've identified is people of faith that love God and that love a higher entity. Good people do things for other people, period. Friends, family, spouses, even children.
Mm-hmm.
And where I wanted to go with this, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but basically to summarize is I think people need to be a bit more selfless and a bit more considerate. Is your feelings, while valued, I don't need to align with. I don't. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
And then on the flip, I think if people are self-sabotaging, meaning you don't have something in control, spending, sex, work, travel, friends, alcohol, whatever you want to call it, if you don't have it under control, the only answer is it's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. It's going to suck. It's going to take sacrifice.
I look at our life in the last few years. You have, and I say in the last few years, but you've had many business things.
Had two.
Okay. You've had two. When we first, how long ago was that first one? Oh my gosh.
2014, 9 years ago.
9 years. Jesus. There's no way.
2014. It was December 2013 that we did that show at the West Edmonton Mall wave pool.
Oh my gosh, that's right. With Steve Aoki.
No, it was Eric Prides.
That's it. Anyway, you started a business way back then, and that business flopped. Sorry, I wouldn't say flopped. It was great.
It was an expensive education.
It was an yeah, that's better.
It's the ultimate reframe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. It was an expensive education. But it took up a lot of our time. I remember you would go to work a night shift, come home, stay up, go out to the lake to open up the business, wait for someone else to get there, go home, sleep for 4 hours, and then go back to work that night. You're exhausted. It was ridiculous.
Greatest times of my life.
But can you imagine doing that with a kid?
Not even close.
That's what I mean. You do those things, you make those decisions when you're young, when you don't have the kids involved. But I feel like once you have kids involved, something has to change. You can't live that fast-paced go-getter life with kids. And if you do, but hold on a minute, but if you do, then you and your partner need to be okay that you're sacrificing family time. And I think it's just, there's only so many years we get with them.
Goes back to that ringing phrase we said when she was young, where the days are long and the years are short.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I
think with kids, your priorities change, right?
Absolutely.
You now have to keep a human alive because the return policy sucks on children.
They sure do.
Yeah.
Return policies also suck on husbands.
Yeah. Well, no.
No, I've asked. And
Yeah.
she said no.
You asked a woman what the return policy was?
I asked your mom what your return policy was, and she said, fuck, he's your problem now.
You'd trade me for my mom any day.
Your mom loves me.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm her favorite.
But I want to challenge that narrative a little bit. And this will be what we'll close on here, is doing things while you're young. I think that's a massive issue today. I think men and women, when they're 18, 19, are told to get an education. And that's a whole other topic. And they either do so for 2 to 4 years, or they don't and they travel. But there's this false expectation that you have to be so experienced in life before you have children, or before you expand your family, or before you set down roots, that it misses people. People drive by, or they drive on the highway of life and they miss the turnoff. And before they know it, they're at the age where they can't have kids, or they're stuck in a job now that they feel like they're committed to because they're 15 years into a pension and they overvalue a pension. I think there's something to be said about meeting somebody young. And again, we were blessed because that is our reality. But I think there's something to be said about not wanting to be experienced in life, travel, sex, and wanting to do all of your firsts with your kids. And we experience that now because we come from a very poor background. We didn't come from means. We didn't come from, I think.
The first time I left Canada, I was 21. You took me to Disney World. My dream.
For your birthday.
For my birthday.
But what I'm getting at is I don't want people to think that you have to do these things, because we have friends that had kids at very young ages.
Yep.
And we actually talked about it this morning where, they're only 4 years older than me, yet their kid is graduating high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, they're not even 15, or they're 15 years from retirement, and the kids are gone.
Yeah.
They're going to live their best lives while also maintaining their legacy and having children.
Yeah.
Because I can promise you, if you asked me what were some of the best experiences in my life, is there one or two that stand out before Sophie? Certainly. No doubt in my mind. It's a highlight. It's an area that I didn't think I would reach, or it was a goal that was years in the making. But I can assure you, my most fulfilling moments was with Sophie.
Yep.
No doubt in my mind. And one of those that I can certainly tell you is I'm so happy with what I've built. I hang my hat on that, of what I was able to work hard for, where you might look at it as that was a rough month. We only seen you a little bit because you worked a ton of overtime, made all the money, or you were just bag tired doing that and the business, or whatever you want to call it. That is something for me that's a reward for the work. And there's that fine balance where when you said you need a man that prioritizes family, because I can promise any man of quality I know certainly does that, even if they work 24 days out of the month. But
again, I think the biggest thing for me is understanding that I say that with, I think, just respect for you, because I know that that's what you bring to the table. I know that that's how you are. I know that that's
how I'm wired.
Exactly. But that's what I look for, So going back, Joe Blow down the street maybe doesn't look for that.
Yeah. So going back,
that's okay.
So going back to it, when I hear of couples getting divorced, and then I hear of the guy looking for another woman that, okay, well, you met your ex at this place and now you're looking for your future girlfriend in the same place. Do you think that that's a recipe for disaster? You know, like it,
The first one didn't work out. That should be
or when women dress up, wear short skirts, and go to Cook County. I'm like, oh, I met this guy, Brad. He's got a 6-pack and drives a Hummer. Oh my God, I can't wait. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But here's the thing. Some of those relationships work out.
Name one.
I can't.
Thank you.
But
other than on HGT or fucking TLC or whatever the fuck the channel is.
Hey.
What I'm getting at is if you meet a person that exudes personality traits that don't align with your core values,
you're probably not meeting them at a Cook County
ranch house or fucking brew house or whatever.
Ranch is no longer. That makes me so sad. No. That was like the best bar.
I think I was in there once to ride the bull.
No, maybe.
Yeah.
I was in there multiple times.
Sorry, I'm a boring ass dude. Sorry.
You're not boring.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm going at is I think men need to sit there and stop looking at Instagram type women with filters and fake shit and, you know, all the, you know, these bikini photos, because then guys will get mad that they get snaked by a girl that they end up having a kid with, get divorced 6 months later, get taken to child support court, and they're fucked for their life. And they do it multiple times. And then women, same thing. You'll meet a dude that gets drunk all the time, plays video games, you'll have a kid, or you'll get into a serious relationship or common law, or you'll eventually get to a point where you have something to lose and you'll lose it. And then you'll question why it happens. Mm-hmm. And that makes no sense. And it's because we prioritize these things. It's cool if you go to the bar and shoot tequila. It's cool if you're on Instagram and have 25,000 followers because you show all your fucking cleavage and your ass online. It's cool if a dude goes on there and has the lifted truck and the big granite waterfall island in his house that he can't afford, and the only way he affords it is by working 24 days a month up north and isn't spending time with his wife and kids. So there's this weird where you're mutually responsible for your success. And women like to blame men and men like to blame women, or you blame society or the government, and nobody ever takes accountability. It's
never your own fault,
but it always is your own. You have control. But I'll tell you, I would not have the same mindset I'd have if you weren't around, and vice versa. I value the woman that you are and the woman you exude because it allows me to be the most successful because we are aligned.
And the same thing goes for you too. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be where I am without all of the opportunities that you've given me. I run a very successful photography business, and that wouldn't have been possible without all of the things that you've done, the time that you've given me. It's something that I look at and am in awe of all the time.
I just look at everybody that we associate with that we would consider having a successful life or a quality life or fulfilling life. They don't have time for BS. They don't have time for things that don't yield a net positive for themselves or the people around them.
Yeah.
They don't have time to bitch and moan about politics online. So I love it. And I think we're aligned. Super appreciative of this discussion. I think this is just an official version of conversations we have all the time. And I hope people
I thought it was going to go way worse than this. I'm not going to lie. I thought we were going to fight.
I don't think we're going to fight.
Oh, well,
okay.
There's always time.
Yeah.
Maybe on the next podcast that I come on, then we can really break it out,
Sure. I like that.
Okay.
But is there anything you want to end on?
No, I think that's it.
Thanks for supporting and helping me create this space. I really appreciate it. It's a way for me to speak my piece in a very authentic way.
I think everyone in the world who knows you,
which is not many people because I'm kind of an introvert,
knows that. So all of our friends and all of our family knows that you are very opinionated. And I think this is the best way to get your opinions out there and get everything off your chest. I think this is kind of a perfect route for you.
This is my vocal journaling.
I like it.
It truly,
I like that.
Yes, it truly feels like that. This is is like my podcast diary. And I don't care who's sitting in that chair. I want to talk to anybody and everybody about this stuff. I love it. I don't just want to talk to people I align with. I want to talk to other people.
I like it.
I want to see where people's heads at, because I think that this sort of type of conversation is missing. It truly is, because I can't have this in the workplace.
I truly wonder, and I feel like your viewers, I feel like we should take a poll. So once you put this out, I feel like a poll should happen.
Of what?
If you're married, do you have these conversations? Is this something that you talk about with your spouse, or do you leave it hush hush? I'd love to know.
Coming soon.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end it on that. Thank you so much, babe.
No problem.
Love this. And hopefully everyone who listened got some value out of this. I'm going to look forward to any comments, any feedback that people might have, good or bad. I love all of it. And where can people find you if they want to know more about Courtney, the mom, the photographer, the wife?
I have a Instagram and Facebook. You can look me up at Ohana Photography. And if you want to book a session with me, you can go to ohana-photography.ca.
Amazing website, by the way. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Unmodern Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, like and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Unmodern Podcast. Do you have suggestions for future guests, or if you're interested in being a guest yourself, please visit unmodernpodcast.com. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode.